everyone, this is Becca from Becca's Music Room. I'm a music teacher who talks about teacher tips, teacher life, teacherpreneurs, and all things that might hopefully make your life just a little bit easier. Today we are here to reflect on my third year of teaching. So every year at the beginning of the school year, I think of a couple of goals that I want to accomplish that year, things that I want to get better at, and just kind of the areas of my teaching that I want to focus on. In the middle of the year, so right around Christmas break, I usually will kind of assess those and see how they're working, if I need to change anything, and then also if there's anything that popped up mid-year that I would like to work on for the rest of the year. At the end of the school year, I always like to reflect on the whole year, just kind of to make sure that I'm improving, and also just to see where I can improve next year, and also just because it's kind of fun. So a little bit of reference, I teach elementary music at an inner city school here in Savannah, Georgia, and it is currently May 2020, which means that we just finished up distance learning. So this year was definitely a little bit different. I got my notepad because I wrote everything down that I wanted to talk about on my pretty Erin Condren notepad that has my name on it, y'all. I am obsessed. I also got the note cards that match this, and I really want the notebook. Anyway, so I'm gonna talk through the goals that I set at the beginning of this year. Actually, I have a whole video about that you can go check out. I'll link it in the description if I remember. And so I'll talk through how those goals went, and then I'll also talk about, like, in general, things that are not on my goals list, but things that went well, didn't go well, and just kind of overall thoughts. So for my goals, I had four things I'm gonna work on, because that makes sense. But four things that I really wanted to focus on improving this year. And so the first one was pacing. So if you watched my second year of teaching reflections video, then you would have seen that I had a really hard time with pacing. The reason is because my school went from seeing my kids once a week to seeing my kids every day for a week, and then not seeing them for like 5 weeks. So when we switched, I had a really hard time just keeping everyone on track and kind of figuring things out. Also, this spring semester, I had planned to do some different concepts to teach at the end of the year, and I didn't factor in the fact that we were going to have testing, and that we were going to have field day, and we were just going to have like all the craziness. And we had these like people that came in for an entire week that talked to our kids about how to stay safe, which was awesome, but took a lot of time, and those kind of things that just really messed up my concept pacing. So this year, that was something I wanted to fix. I will say that it went much smoother. I sat down at the beginning of the school year, and I mapped out the like first week of each rotation. So, you know, I'm gonna see them, you know, I'll see the kids, you know, in August. It's basically once a month, but a little bit off for breaks, and then because it is 5 or 6 weeks depending on the grade level. So I just sat down and like wrote down when I would see each group of kids, and that made life so much easier. So at the beginning of the year, I already said, okay, I'm gonna teach quarter rest this month. I'm gonna teach 16th notes this rotation, and it just made life so much easier. Something else I did that helped my pacing is that I didn't plan anything for the end of the year. So my last rotation was supposed to be review of concepts, and the second to last rotation was just really a continuation of what we had already worked on with the little kids. And for the upper kids, we were working on ukulele, recorder, and we were going to work on instruments of the orchestra. Now, none of those things happened because we went away for spring break and we never came back. We did talk about instruments of the orchestra with our online learning. I will link a video all about some lessons that I have done on Zoom that were really fun down here. I will also link my instruments of the orchestra bundle, because I pretty much use that for like almost all of distance teaching. So if you're still in the classroom, I will link those down below for you. Anyway, so my point being, I didn't do any of that, but I had already wrapped up pretty much everything before spring break, because I was planning on testing and field day and all those things. So even though I wasn't planning on coronavirus, I was planning to not really see my kids on a consistent basis, which worked out in my favor. So I will definitely be doing that again next year, where we just kind of wrap it all up before spring break. All right, the second thing that I wanted to focus on was classroom management. This is probably gonna be on my list every single year, because if you don't have that, you don't really have anything. So a couple of things in there that worked really well is I started a new system. I have a whole video on it, and there's a free printable that you can get with that. And so I use a card system. So I was doing, basically you had like 5 chances to get your life together, and we've gone down to 3 because as time has gone on, I just no. I have a whole video about that, so I'm not going to go super in depth, but basically I have yellow card, which is a warning, and a red card, which is a lunch attention and a parent phone call. You can learn more about that in the video. I'm gonna try to remember all these links at the end. So that worked really well. I also started using think sheets, really like those, and I read quite a few books this year about, not necessarily about classroom management, but about teaching. I did read the book called Classroom Management for Art, Music, and PE Teachers, which was fabulous. Highly recommend. Even if you're not an art, music, or PE teacher, it was great. And then also the End of Molasses classes was really, I'm looking at it over there. It was really good and really helpful. It wasn't about classroom management, but it was about running your classroom, which I mean is pretty much the same thing. So it talked a lot about just making sure that your kids were engaged and stuff like that. And if your kids are engaged, then they're not going to be doing other things. I still need a little bit of work with my friends who need just a little bit of extra help. So that's what I'm kind of focusing on for next year. I think I haven't made a list for next year. Thought I'd take the summer before I decide. Number 3 was reading and writing. So I wanted to incorporate more books, and I was voluntold to incorporate more writing. By more, I mean like any. So half of this went well. I thought I did a pretty good job using books this year. I got a bunch of picture books. I came up with a lot of lessons that went along with them. My favorite was definitely Chicka Chicka Boom Boom. And there was an old lady who swallowed a shark. I will link to those down below. And then I Know a Shy Fellow Who Swallowed a Cello, also wonderful. I have a lot. I'm not gonna link them all down below, but I have a lot. I've really been working this year on creating engaging music lessons that are based on picture books. As far as writing, I did not do the greatest job. I tried really hard. I kept coming up to this issue with my writing in that my academic coach seemed to want the kids to be writing like an entire day, and they were supposed to write like essays and like really in depth, and I was kind of more on the, this is music class, so we should like, you know, write, but it needs to be, you know, music related and fun. I don't want them to spend 45 minutes writing. Like, no one wants that. You know, they don't even want that in their classroom, and especially when they're little, like that's just not happening. So that was really difficult for me. And then also I had a really hard time finding time to write because I also wanted to do a lot of other things. So that's something I'm gonna work on next year, just like what are we writing and how can I incorporate it without it like taking over my life. The 4th thing that I wanted to work on this year was getting the engagement up. So some things that I did this year that I think really helped engagement was trying to get the pace of my lessons quicker. So just, we did a lot of activities, especially in the younger grades. We did a lot of stuff, and that really helped. Just making things flow quickly really made a huge difference in how engaged the kids were because they weren't getting bored. Another very strange thing that worked was that we did quite a few coloring sheets that weren't really coloring sheets. I wanted to get better at data tracking this year, and part of that was that I needed the kids to have like concrete ways to show me what they understood. So that meant lots of manipulatives, but it also meant written activities that they could show me that they know how to write ta and titi, or that they can identify so and me. And so I had a lot of activities that involved coloring. Like we did a pumpkin activity where each pumpkin had a solfege pattern in it, and you would color the one that said saw me, you would color green, and then you would color the one that said me so blue, and stuff like that. Just really easy for me to assess whether they understand or not. And they actually really liked them, which I thought was weird. I was kind of like, oh no, I'm giving them a test and they're gonna not like it. But they were like, yeah, coloring. And then after that they were like, Miss Davis, are we gonna color today? We're gonna color today. I was like, we're not gonna color every day, but I'm glad you're excited. So those are the 4 goals that I had that I was working on this year. I think I did okay on them. I think some could still use some progress, so we'll see how that goes. Overall for the year, a couple of things that went really, really well are data tracking. I got so much better at tracking what students actually know and using that to drive my instruction. If you're interested in how I do that, I could do like an entire video or a blog post on that, so let me know down below if you're interested. My choir was like rock stars this year. I want to take credit for that, but I don't feel like it was me. I can't like put my finger on why they were so awesome this year, but they were amazing. So there was that. I also did really well at the beginning of the year. Beginning of the year is really hard your first year, and it's still pretty hard your second year because you're kind of like, I know I don't need to do what I did the first year, but I'm still not quite sure. But this year went so much smoother because I just had a much better idea of like what I should actually do with the kids on the first day and how I can build relationships and how I can see what they know and how we can just have a lot of fun. And the last thing on my things that went well is my beginning of class routine with my littles. So I changed up how I start class with them, and every day they come in and we do stretches, and then we do some solfege patterns, and they echo back to me, and I have a whole video on that as well, so I will leave that down below, but it went very well. A couple of things that didn't go so well are, again, the writing. I already expressed my issues with the writing, and so I'll need to work that out next year. If you have writing activity ideas that won't completely take over my class, leave them down below. And then the other thing that was really hard this year is not in my control, but I had so many meetings. I feel so selfish saying this. So at my school, typically the classroom teachers have meetings during their planning at least 4 days a week. It's like supposed to be 4 days a week, but it's usually all 5. And in some of those they're planning or they're doing different things. So it's not like there's, all of their stuff is being taken. But typically for the specialist teachers, we only had 1 day a week that we would have a meeting, and we would just have, with ourselves during our planning, no big deal. And this year we had so many meetings. We would have like 3 days where our planning was taken with meetings, which left you with 2, which is not a lot of time. And I feel bad saying this because I know that I have been in a position where it's just been so much better, but it was really frustrating this year because especially it was like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So I felt like I got nothing done Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. And I worked through a lot of lunches because of that. And just like that stress of not having a time when I can like dedicated to working on whatever I need to get done. Obviously I made it happen, but it was very, very frustrating. So that's not something that's in my control, but I'm really hoping that next year it will change, because this was the first year where many times, especially throughout the fall, I was like super stressed out about my job, but it wasn't the kids. I was like, the kids are fine. It's everything else that's stressing me out, which is funny because my dad is an educator. He taught Spanish for 9 years, I think, and now he's an AP. And that's something I heard him say over and over and over. He was like, it's not the kids, it's everything else. And so I finally hit that wall. Does that make me like a real educator now? I don't know. So there's a couple things that went well and didn't go well. Overall, third year of teaching, super weird. Just super weird. Because we had the coronavirus shutdown, like everything was just so strange. So very strange. Literally our entire 4th marking period was done from home and over Zoom and with things changing, and it was just really weird. And I don't know a better way to describe it than it was just so weird. And so there was that. But other than that, the other 3 semesters or marking periods or whatever you want to call them, overall I will say that they were so much easier than my second year of teaching, and especially my first year of teaching. I don't know what it is about the third year. I kind of feel like your first year, you just have no idea what's happening, no matter how prepared you are. And then your second year, it's like, okay, I kind of know what to expect, but I'm still not quite sure how to do it right. And then when you get to your third year, you've now done everything twice. So you feel kind of like you understand and you're like a little bit ready for what's gonna go on, and you kind of know what's gonna work and not work. You can reuse some lessons that you've used before, and just overall so much easier. If you are a first or second year teacher, I would highly recommend that you wait until the end of your third year to decide whether you're gonna stay in the profession or not. If you're kind of like on the fence, you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this, wait until 3 years is up and then make your decision, because it really does get so much easier after 3. Also, something that got a lot easier was physically it was easier, which was a huge surprise. My first year of teaching, I was so exhausted all of the time. Everything hurt. Like by the time we got to Friday, I would lay on the couch and that was pretty much all I would do. And I was not getting up. I was not moving. Like it just wasn't happening. Weekends were like Netflix and chill. Actually, we didn't have internet at our first house, so it was more like Hallmark Channel and chill, but still, you know, same thing. But it like physically everything hurt. It was just a mess. Second year was not as bad, but still like my feet would hurt a lot, especially towards the end of the week and things like that. And this year I didn't have that most of the time. So it might be that I'm more in shape. It might just be that I'm more used to it. It might be because they changed my schedule up a little bit, so my planning's at a different time this past year. I'm not quite sure, but something changed and made it a lot easier. I don't know. All right, so that's everything I have on my third year of teaching. I would be really curious to see what you have to say about your year. What reflections do you have? Did you set goals? If you did you reach them? Do you have suggestions for goals for next year? Did you notice something magical about the third year of teaching? Just everything got easier? If you have answers to any of those questions, leave them down below in the comments. I would love to chit chat with you. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful week. I've really been working on just like the other 3, I'm just gonna take that off. So if you were a first or second year's teaching, but I kept coming up to this issue, Athena, thank you.